Good morning, everybody. Alex Cottrell. Good morning, gentlemen. Welcome to Coast College Football Pregame Show, episode number 5 of season number 2. And we are officially in the week 1 of college football. Let's clap it up. Let's clap it up, gentlemen. We have real football games all day long today. All 3 of our teams will be in competition. We got a lot to get into, as always. Super exciting show. We are going to get into our Power 5 Group of 5 preview, who we think is, going to take that one automatic berth in the college football playoff. We're going to unveil each of our own college football playoff seeding brackets today for everybody before the season starts. We're going to go, we're going to have obviously our game previews, top 5 games of the week, and there are some good football games to start off the year. And then obviously we're going to start pick 'em. So great show to get into. Before we get into it, as always, got to introduce the guys that help make this show easy and fun for me. First off, my Buckeye brother from another mother, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great, man. Anytime I get to be awake and I get to wake up to Buckeye football, I am ecstatic. So I'm happy this morning that finally get to see these Buckeyes back out there on the field, especially coming off the disappointment that we saw last year. It's a whole new year. I don't have to hear about, oh, we won the national championship last year. I don't have to hear about, this or that. Everybody starts off the slate 0-0. Well, unless you're Florida State. But everybody today gets to start off the slate 0-0. And we get to just see how it all plays out for the next 15 plus weeks. So I'm ecstatic.
That is true. We have reset the clock. Everybody is 0-0, like you said, except for Florida State and Georgia Tech. To their credit, they are 1-0. But yeah, I mean it's the best time of the year for me. Whenever I get to wake up, don't quite have the early chill in the air yet, which is it's around the corner though. I could feel it, especially for the Northeast. I don't know what's going on in the Northwest though. So we will bring in my guy here, Mr. I Black, Mr. former Pac-12, Mr. rookie Big Ten, and Mr. Oregon Duck lover himself, Alex Elmore. How are you this morning, sir?
Man, it's early, but I'm happy. It's college football is finally here, and just because I'm a rookie, don't be thinking I'm gonna be carrying your bags to class. None of that crap, all right? Because we're here to kick ass. We're here to stay. Might as well change the name to the Big O because that's what it's gonna be.
Don't worry, bro. We're too. Me and Cottrell are always too busy. Me and Cottrell are always too busy carrying the Big Ten, so don't worry about it.
Well, guess what? It's time that someone came in and helped y'all. Take that weight off some of your shoulders, and we'll take the reins for a while.
You're not even the biggest O in the Big Ten, so let's not even go there, buddy.
Well, the only O that matters is the O in the win column, and for Ohio State when Oregon beats them this year. That's all that matters.
The only O you should be used to up there in Oregon is the amount of national championships you guys have.
I didn't interrupt your introduction time. It's 7:05 in the morning right now.
This is what the people have been waiting for, all right? This is what the people have been waiting for.
This is more feisty than last week already.
Look, y'all,
we can't even get through introductions.
Cottrell's been up for 2 hours longer than me. He's had more time to prepare insults. All right? I'm waking up coming with haymakers, so
it doesn't matter. It's officially official now. Today, like you're the enemy.
That's true. That's true. You are officially. You're officially, I don't want to say on the clock, but you are officially in enemy territory now.
Well, that's fine.
I'm gonna have to start treating you like how we treat Penn State fans and how Michigan people treat Michigan State fans, like just the annoying little baby brother that just won't get the hell out the way.
Just won't. All right. couple things. Man, we just woke up and chose violence for episode 5. It's all right.
Woke up 15 minutes ago and y'all are like, coming out my throat.
Redemption tour, baby.
Redemption tour.
Couple of things. Before we get in the show, already got a couple of messages about it. Me and Cottrell, myself and Cottrell have watched the Connor Stallions thing. Alex, unfortunately, has not been able to watch it yet. So we are not going to get into it this week. We want Alex to watch it first. That will be probably one of the first things we talk about next week. So already getting texts about it, get messages about it. I promise you we will will dig into it all next week. Even for just talking to Cottrell about it, there's some things we agree on, some we don't. But we have to have Alex's point of view on it as well. So if you're looking for that, I promise you we're not avoiding it. I've said Connor Steins is crazy from the get-go. I didn't see anything in that thing to change my mind. But we will. I promise you, we will delve into all that next week. So
I'm watching it tonight. I will not put it off any longer.
That being said, we're gonna hop into it here, folks. Group of 5 preview. One of these teams, I think we hope one of these teams that we mentioned ends up being the team that gets the automatic qualifier. In one of the 12 seeds for the college football playoff at the end of the year. They could be seeded anywhere from, I guess, they can't get a top 4 seed, correct?
They can if they finish
ahead of somebody else. Okay,
5 rankings and win their conference. Then yes, they can.
So if they were ranked 15th and the Big 12 winner was 18th, they would get the 4 seed.
Correct.
Okay. Sorry. So I was correct in what I was saying. They can be ranked anywhere 1 through 12. So, we're going to go over who we think has a shot. I think we're probably all narrowed in on the same 3 or 4 teams, I would say. If somebody's got anything other than that, then I'm all ears and ready to listen to it. But I'll let you guys start this. Like I said, I think we're all going to talk about the same teams here, so we can pretty much just jump in and out and give our opinions and so forth and so on. And then when we get into our actual brackets, you're going to see who we actually pick. So maybe just preview the teams. I wouldn't say who you're choosing at this point, if that makes sense to you guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. I was texting Cottrell because we were kind of going over.
Why are you texting me?
Because you were busy, Bill. You weren't texting back, man. Gosh.
I'm always busy.
No,
man.
I was sending Cottrell my team so he could make graphics for us this week, and I was telling him like, hey, it's going to be a little bit on my team number 12 because I cannot decide who this Power 5 team is going to be. I can't decide between 4 or 5 of them. So I have a list of like 6 teams that I really honestly dove deep into. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 teams I dove deep into yesterday at work.
How many do you have?
I got 2.
2? I have 4, and I'm probably closer to 2 that are real.
Well, here's the thing.
Realistically, I probably have 3, but one of them I kind of just cut off. But I know they're going to get talked about, so I'm not really worried about them.
All right, well then, Alex,
I misunderstood the assignment. Okay, so
you're good.
I chose my winner for each conference. Each Power 5 conference, I chose my winner for each one of those. So that's what I thought we were doing, man. So that's why I went deep.
Alex is going to be the champion of this segment then.
Brother,
get into it.
He's got to win something. Shit.
Well, look, man. Damn. Obviously, our Power 5 conferences. You got the Mountain West Conference. You got the American Athletic Conference. What is it? You got the Conference USA. You got the MAC, and then you got the Sun Belt. So now each of those. All right.
Well, time out. Before, all right. If we're like nobody from.
Go ahead.
Nobody from the MAC is going to end up here.
Okay. We both already disagree with you.
All right. Let's go.
Control. I'm dying to know who your MAC.
I'm just saying.
Let's start in the MAC.
Control's super biased with the MAC, though.
Return of the MAC.
I am not saying that I have a MAC team. I'm just saying in years past we've seen really good MAC teams be ranked and come like. I'm not going to say close to going to the playoff or anything like that, but we've seen them be in the conversation, potentially go to New Year's 6 bowls. Western Michigan had an 11-1 season, years back when Corey Davis was still there. The Toledo's had some really good teams where they've won 10, 11 games. I think they can be in contention. They just have to have 10 or 11 wins. And I think if you compare some of the resumes to other teams, they just won't get there. I'm just saying don't throw the MAC out the window just because they're the MAC. That's all I'm saying.
We're going to do the MAC. Alex, your choice, brother. Start where you want to start.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get the MAC out the way because I was already singing Return of the MAC and I was doing the dance while Cottrell was doing his thing. But no, like when it comes to the MAC, I kind of focused on a couple teams, but the one that I really picked that I think is going to win the conference this year and have the best chance to make that, that 12-team college football playoff is Miami of Ohio. They returned over half of their starting defense, including MAC Defensive Player of the Year, Matt Salopek, that limited teams to 15.9 points per game last year. Really an understated fact that the MAC may not have the most powerful offenses, but allowing less than 16 points a game is nothing to shake your head at. And they are led by a veteran quarterback in Brett Gabbert. I think he's like 34 this year. He's on like year 7, I think, of college. But the thing
he's a couple months younger than Dylan Gabriel.
He's older than Dylan Gabriel. But anyway, the thing about Brett Gabbert that's really nice is he's very efficient. I'm trying to get through this. All right, guys, come on. It's early.
I can't help myself. I
know. Well, then put yourself on mute, all right? Because I'm talking about the man, Brett Gabbert, who only has 19 career interceptions in 5 seasons. That's under 4 a year. So he takes care of the ball. Like I said, Miami, Ohio is going to go for back-to-back MAC chips, and I think they're going to have the best chance. He's in his 6th year right now. Believe it or not.
Come on.
With the COVID year, and then he had a year
the
short
jokes
by
write
injury.
themselves, Bill. Like, come on. Like, that's why I can't help myself.
If you guys can't notice, I trust age. All right, I trust age because I know that as I got older.
Natural transition. He'll be a duck next year. Perfect. All right, I'm done. That's the first bad thing I've said. It's all I can try. I can't hang around with him anymore. He's a bad influence.
If you put it over the middle of the plate, I'm hitting it out the park every time. Like throw me some off speed. Put one in the dirt. I'm sorry. Make me chase a little bit.
Well, you know what? I wasn't even trying to lay one up for you. I was just, he is older than Dylan Gabriel, though. I'm just saying he's in his 6th year. Dylan Gabriel's in his 5th year. Okay. But no. So I do have Miami, Ohio going back to back in the MAC. Back to back in the MAC. I like that. I'll make a song. Next week, I'm going to come back with it.
Please don't.
Okay, I won't. But yeah, Miami of Ohio is going to win the MAC for sure this year. Like I said, best chance for college football playoff this year. Do you guys have any MAC teams that you want to talk about specifically, or was that kind of?
I'll say this. I did not do a deep dive on the MAC.
I did.
I know Miami of Ohio returns a lot. The only team, and I'm going to say this because I saw them play in person last year. I know Bowling Green brings back a lot. I would say if Miami of Ohio probably has a logical challenger outside of, like Cottrell said, Toledo. I feel like Toledo wins 9 games every year. Outside of them, I would say it's probably Bowling Green. They bring a lot back. I saw them play Michigan. Michigan did not play well. Don't get me wrong. We still won by like 20 points. But they have players on the team. They have playmakers on both sides of the ball. They didn't look like your average MAC team. I'll say that. So I think Bowling Green probably has their head in that conversation at some point.
Dope jerseys. Bowling Green. Dope jerseys.
Obviously Toledo. That's probably. I mean, that would probably be it for me.
I think Toledo takes a step back this year. Their quarterback DeQuan Finn transferred over to Baylor. He's going to be Baylor's starting quarterback this year. And while Toledo is always good, I actually think they're going to be bowl eligible. But Alex, I'm 100% with you. I think this is Miami's conference to lose this year. With what they brought back offensively, they didn't have a great offense last year, but again, super senior led by Gabbert there, and they had an incredible defense last year. We talked about
2.5 sacks a game, man.
During bowl season. They were absolutely incredible, and as good as Toledo was last year and the success they had in regular season, that conference championship game, Miami of Ohio shut them down. So got to give Miami of Ohio their credit there. I do think it's theirs to lose. I want to say I looked at their out-of-conference schedule before. I think they have like 2 bona fide non-conference losses on their schedule. I think that's what kind of scared me from them.
They have Northwestern, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame. The first 3 games.
Notre Dame for me.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons why I stayed away from them as well, because I was like, okay, cool. You lose to Notre Dame in a close game. That's understandable. But going to Cincinnati is another tough team.
I don't know how good Cincinnati is going to be. And I'm telling you right now, Northwestern might be the worst team in the Big Ten this year. Facts. So I don't know. I'm not saying they don't beat Northwestern later today.
I mean, shoot, if they beat Northwestern and Ohio and they keep the Notre Dame game respectable and they lose by 14, something like that, 2 scores.
Yeah.
That's enough to get them into that's a good enough resume to get them into talks about the college football playoff. So
here's their schedule real quick. Northwestern away, Cincy at home, Notre Dame away, UMass at home, Toledo away, Eastern Michigan away, Ohio at home, Central Michigan at home, Ball State on the road, Kent State at home, Northern
That's a
Illinois
win.
at home. It's
No shit.
they finished. They finish.
At Bowling Green.
They finish at Bowling Green, so that game could be very interesting at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be a really good game.
All right, what's next, Alex?
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, we're just going to jump into a conference that I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about, and that's going to be Conference USA. I missed the old Conference USA. I think I could talk about UAB a little bit, but we'll get to them later. But with Conference USA, I think it's going to be a runaway for Liberty. I think they're going to repeat as Conference USA champions. Return 15 offensive and defensive starters, including Caden Salter, their star quarterback, 2,900 yards through the air, over 1,000 yards on the ground. Not to mention they have their senior running back, Quentin Cooley, who had 1,300 yards total last year, and he had 9 carries for 71 yards in the bowl game against Oregon. He was the one bright spot that they actually showed in that game, and he's coming back as well. So, I think the only ding that they may have is getting into the college football playoff this year is that the committee's going to remember last year how they went undefeated, went to play Oregon, and got absolutely boat raced 45-6. And I think that the flavor of that loss might be left over in the committee's mind, and that might keep them out of the college football playoff. But I think Liberty runs away with Conference USA this year as well.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I think the problem Liberty has is their schedule. Their schedule is awful. They have App State on the road. It's probably going to be their only probably top 50 game they play. And if they slip up anywhere, that one loss will destroy them. Like you said, last year against Oregon will be fresh in everybody's minds. And, strength of schedule, I think, is, we've talked about it so much, trying to get down to 4 teams. I actually think in a weird way, it's going to become a bigger issue now with 12 teams, because you're going to really be kind of like getting down to the, splitting hairs with a lot of programs to get in at the end. So I agree with everything you said about Liberty. I just don't think they can afford a loss. I think if they lose one game, I'd almost say they might be eliminated, because their strength of schedule is going to be so weak.
Well, since we're here, I got one of my teams is actually in Conference USA. I like UTSA this year. UTSA has been a team that has been consistently winning at least 9 games. Last 3 years, they've won at least 9 games. They returned all of their production in the backfield as well. Their top 3 or 4 production backs from last year all come back. And their quarterback is actually going to be Owen McCown, who is, the name sounds familiar, it's because it's Josh McCown's son. So I think with just the offensive mind that Owen is, and what he's going to be just from, his dad is an NFL coach, and he played in the NFL for as long as he did. So I think Owen's going to have all the tools, and they're going to heavily rely on that running attack as well. I think they're going to be the team that can push Liberty this year. And I think the other thing that I think is very favorable for them is that I really only see one conference loss for them. I think UTSA avoids Liberty on their schedule this year, and their 2 toughest games are going to be at Texas, which of course is going to be a super tough game, probably going to be a loss there, but at least it's in-state, 1, so I think their fans can travel. And then 2, the other game that's going to be tough for them is Memphis. Memphis is going to be a really good team this year, in my opinion, and I think if they can find a way to either win that game or just make it tight and only have 1 loss and still go to the Conference USA championship game against a team like Liberty, who I expect to be there on the other side, I think at that point they would control their own destiny, especially given the fact that they play a team that's ranked as high as Texas. And if they have a good showing there, like we talked about Miami of Ohio with Notre Dame, lose by like 14, 17, but they keep it competitive pretty much throughout the entire game, I think they're going to have a case to go to the college football playoff.
So UTSA, I just checked for you while you were talking. They do not play Liberty. So, they can only meet in the conference championship game. I think it's funny that, we've already mentioned Liberty, who was on my short list. UTSA was on my short list as well for all the reasons that Contrell just said. So I'm not going to sit here and regurgitate them. I think with what they have come back, they're going to be a very solid football team. and then the next one, Cottrell briefly brought up there, which was Memphis. So I think it's funny that three of my 4 teams are all coming from the same conference. So I really think it depends on obviously how the strength of schedule plays out for all of them. Hopefully somebody else in the conference gets hot, that one of these teams beats and, gets a little bit of a bump that they weren't expecting. But again, I almost think somebody's kind of got to run through Conference USA to have a legit shot. I feel like UTSA and Memphis's margin of error is a little bit bigger because they play each other, like Cottrell said. I think if you play them in the regular season and lose, but get your rematch in the final and win again, I think that'll help a little bit with the committee and the rankings. But Liberty doesn't have either one of them, so it's tough. It's going to be tough. But Alex, who do you have next? Oh, you got more?
I was going to say, I just realized too, completely forgot. Again, this is what Alex kind of alluded to before he started going here. Realignment has happened. I completely forgot. UTSA is no longer in Conference USA anymore. They switched over to the AAC.
American Athletic Conference.
Yeah. So disregard part of what I said. I'm not going to go over it again when we get there, but does change a little bit that they won't get a chance to see Liberty. But again, I think with what their schedule is, Memphis is going to be a team that I think can be borderline a top 25 team this year. So I still think that game could be important to them. And what I said about them playing Texas doesn't change either. I still think non-conference game, you find a way to keep that close and take care of what you should the rest of your schedule, you should at least put yourself in a position to be one of those group of 5 teams that's potentially there competing for that automatic berth in the college football playoff.
Well, since we kind of brought up the AAC, I'll just jump over, make it easy, and jump over to the American Athletic Conference. And really, there was 2 teams that I kind of wanted to pinpoint in the AAC. One of them was a team that I see a potential huge improvement from last year to this year, and that's UAB. They got second-year coach Trent Dilfer. They finished 4-8 last year. He's a great motivator. They're returning Jacob Zeno, who's a playmaker in the 18th ranked passing attack last year, 3,100 yards. 20 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. And I also expect backup running back Lee Beebe Jr. to really take a big step forward this year, especially because he's the best catcher in the backfield, or out of the backfield for UAB, and expect him to be a monster on the outside, getting the passes. And especially because I play UAB on NCAA 25, I want to send Trent Dilfer some coaching techniques that work for me to get my UAB, to at least in the top 25. So I'll send him some notes. But that use Lee Beebe Jr., man, he's fast. He's good with his hands. According to the ratings, get him outside. But the other team that I really wanted to focus on the AAC was Tulane. They lost their leading quarterback last year, but guess who came in to take the snaps? And that's Oregon Duck transfer Ty Thompson. He's a junior. He's a sophomore, a redshirt sophomore, so he's got plenty of eligibility left. He completed 77% of his passes in the 6 games he showed up for in Oregon last year, and they had a 20th ranked scoring defense in Tulane as well. They have a really tough schedule. That's the issue. They play K-State, they play Oklahoma, and they finish up in their conference against Memphis, which is one of the teams that a lot of the bigger channels are talking about as possibly making the college football playoff is Memphis, and that's where Tulane ends their schedule. So that's a lot of tough games for Tulane, especially on the road against K-State and Oklahoma. It's tough. If they can pull out one of those wins and beat Memphis, though, it puts them in a prime spot to make the college football playoff, especially with their ranked win over K-State or Oklahoma. Any AAC teams? You talked about UTSA, but what about you, Bill?
No, UTSA is the one that's on my list. So, okay. I just like what they have coming back. I think in the smaller conferences, you see it magnified on on the larger scale with like the bigger teams. But experience just matters so much. When you have a senior laden, really experienced team coming back like that's been through the wars already together in a smaller conference, I just think it makes such a huge difference. So I like UTSA a lot.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that the thing that I think is very important is these smaller schools now, they have to be very smart with how they plan their schedules moving forward. Now, obviously, I know they can't change anything from this year and next year, stuff that's already signed. But for example, you mentioned a team like Tulane. Well, if you compare their schedule to a team like we just talked about, UTSA, where UTSA plays Texas, and that's it from like the big schools that are ranked. I think these smaller schools are really doing themselves a disservice by scheduling multiple top 25 teams. I understand the money is going to be there, and you're traveling to go to these schools and they're giving you 500, 750, maybe even $1 million to come and play them. But I think with schools, especially the way the portal is now and just the opportunities a lot of these players are going to have to potentially go to the college football playoff with everything opening up, I think you're going to see a lot more schools be a little bit more cautious with how they schedule things. I think you can see, again, just using UTSA as the example, I think you could see teams like that staying close to home, traveling over to Austin and playing Texas there, staying in state. But as far as them scheduling Clemson and Texas and Notre Dame all in the same season, I think we're going to start seeing a little bit less of that just because the stakes are going to be much higher. It's different being a 11-1 team that lost to Texas by, 14, 17 points, as opposed to being a 3-loss, like an 8-3 or a 9-3 team that lost to all these schools by that same margin and beat the hell out of everybody else. Like, I think perception is everything, and that number at the end definitely is going to matter. So I think teams should just be smart moving forward in terms of their scheduling.
But see, I think the opposite. Go ahead, Bill.
No, go ahead. Mine's easy.
Okay, see, I think the complete opposite. I think you're going to see a team like Liberty maybe go undefeated this year, and because they didn't schedule a little bit of a tougher competition in their non-conference schedule, they're going to get left out. So I think you might see teams go the Tulane route where maybe not schedule 2 K-State and Oklahoma, maybe not schedule 2, but you may start seeing those Conference USA, AAC teams at least getting one Big 12, one Big 10, or one SEC school on their schedule that's a ranked opponent just to have that on their schedule as for a resume booster.
For me, just on the flip side of that, I would say if you look at Liberty's schedule last year, it was also light, and they still found a way. And I get it, the group of 5 schools, they have that automatic berth kind of thing that they were doing to the New Year's Six stuff. They would have been the team that got into the college football playoff last year, and their schedule was as weak as it was. And we saw what happened against Oregon, and I do think you will have some lingering thoughts there from the committee about that, hey, we don't want this to happen again. But at the same time, you're going to be hard pressed with a 12-team playoff to say, hey, we want to bring forth the best group of 5 school. This team has a 0 by their name. This team has a 3 by their name. We know they face tougher competition, but it's going to be hard for you to sell that, hey, this is the team that deserves to be there. I mean, even look at James Madison. You saw how much love we were giving them last year on the show. As soon as they took a couple losses on their resume, regardless if they're good games or not. I know the one game against App State went to overtime, and it was absolutely phenomenal, but they were on the wrong side of it, and they just slowly got phased out of the thought and stuff like that. I know it's a little bit different with them because of their eligibility for the postseason last year, with the bowl games and stuff, but perception to me, especially in college football, is everything.
Yeah, so I was going to say, perception is definitely reality, all right? And with college football, I mean, and we've seen it too often, even in the last couple of years, the way it's played out, the way they look at these teams, and the 3 of us could sit here and be like, they're looking at it the wrong way, but it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? They look at teams the way they look at them, and then they place them in. The only reason I would give any kind of pushback to Alex is the old way of thinking and the way the old bowl structure was set up. I agree with you. I thought these little teams had to schedule that team because even though the loss was worth the boost in strength of schedule, because that's usually what it always came down to in determining who would get the New Year's Six berth. I think the difference now is with one of these teams guaranteed to be in the playoff every single year, the best thing you could do is have that 0 next to your name at the end of the year. Be 12-0, be 13-0, or whatever. Make somebody else run the gauntlet and at least match you, and then hope you don't get picked apart by the committee or the ranking system, and you're the odd one left out. So I think that the loss column is even now more important for those smaller schools, because there is one that is going to guarantee to get their shot and get in the playoff every single year. So, I think the other thing that sucks for some of these teams are, you look at Michigan and Texas. They signed this deal 8 years ago, I think, to play this home and home, this year and next year, we had no idea we were going to be in super conference territory. The playoff was going to change and everything else. Because I guarantee you, if we sit here right now, they're not signing that deal. There's no need to. And some of these smaller schools locked in these contracts 10 years ago. And like you guys both said, it's like, hey, all right, we'll go to Texas to get our teeth kicked in, but we're also going to get $1.5 million for playing it. And that gets like everybody on the team, like new stuff. And like, you know what I mean? Like the loss was worth it, financially. Now it's a little bit different. But I mean, you a lot of these schools have to play out these contracts. I will say I think they were saying in another 5 or 6 years, everything that was already pre-signed would be done. And then it'll be really interesting to see if they all go forward and actually get played, or from that point forward, what gets scheduled. Because I don't think you're going to see it. I don't. I could be wrong. We'll see how the playoff plays out the next couple of years, but I don't think you'll see. I'll put it this way: I don't think you'll see big name schools scheduling non-conference with big name schools. I still think you'll see like Miami, Ohio go to Notre Dame. Like that just makes too much sense for them, for the money wise and exposure and everything else. I don't think you're going to see Ohio State starting a season against Alabama anymore, or Michigan traveling to Texas. Oh man, we're not doing this again.
I'm with you, Bill. I don't think we see that anymore either. And I think that just kind of piggybacking off that, I know Ohio State has signed a home and home with Alabama and a home and home with Georgia, like over the course of like 4 years, I think starting like 2030. I do think you're going to, definitely get away with that. I also think though, you may still see that only in like the week ones where it's at like a neutral site. Like you guys traveling to Texas, I'll be honest, doesn't make sense for you anymore.
No.
If that game was in Vegas or that game was at the Rose Bowl or, the Cotton, something like that, like I think it would make a lot more sense.
What LSU and USC are doing.
Correct. Yeah.
I get it.
I think it would make a lot more sense if you're doing stuff like that. But I definitely can see a lot of these bigger schools starting to phase that out, especially if you're in the Big Ten or the SEC.
I 100% agree on like that, and that is, I think in a weird way that's kind of eventually what starts to hurt Notre Dame, because if you're USC, I get it, it's a rivalry game, but do you want to risk being 8-3 going into that last week and knowing you probably need at least, I mean, I can't see anybody unless you win a conference championship, and let's just be honest, you're not winning the SEC or the Big Ten with 8 wins. So let's just eliminate that. Okay. So unless you're, a 9-3 Utah or, like a 10-2 or a 9-3 Miami or something like that, do you really want to be going into that last week of the season if you're Notre Dame sitting there with 3 losses and be like, crap, or like USC and be like, we scheduled this non-conference game and now we got to go play Notre Dame. And if we lose, we probably ruins our season. Or if we win, it helps us. But like, I even think some of that stuff's going to go away. Like I understand USC plays them every year, but at the same time, it's like at any given year now, you're going to have to play 3 of some combination of, Washington, Oregon, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Ohio State. Like you don't need Notre Dame anymore. You don't. So like it's like I'll be curious to see even how stuff like that evolves in scheduling in the next couple of years.
No, for sure.
So
definitely.
Old Yeller, thanks for coming back.
Sorry, I was going when took a little nap. But no, it's funny that we were talking about UTSA, and that's kind of how we got off on our little tangent that we always get on here. But I actually really liked UTSA as well. When I was looking at their schedule, I came across another dark horse team that I really liked in the Sun Belt Conference, and actually this is my pick to win the Sun Belt, and that's gonna be Texas State. Really, I know, crazy selection, but they got incoming transfer Jordan McLeod. That dude is an absolute monster. 3,400 yards, 32 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 8 rushing touchdowns to go along with it. He was Sun Belt Player of the Year last year, and guess who he played for? James Madison, who we just were talking about, having a fantastic year last year. In conference transfer, just to the other side of the division, and look for them to possibly face off in the Sun Belt Championship. But I got Texas State coming out of the Sun Belt, and with their schedule, they have a chance to really make a case for the college football playoff as well. When when you look at their schedule, they have Lamar, UTSA. They scheduled a game against Arizona State. They got Sam Houston, and then they get into conference play after that. And I think their toughest match, in conference is going to be South Alabama, which is the last game of the year. And unfortunately, it is on the road in South Alabama. But Jordan McLeod has this kind of big game experience and can lead a team. Did last year was 11-2, I think they finished. So I got Texas State coming out of the Sun Belt. What about you?
Texas State's really good team. I like another team out of the Sun Belt though. I like the team that one of our co-hosts is all too familiar with.
Oh,
Appalachian State. Love Appalachian State this year. I think with what they brought back on that team, Joey Aguilar is a guy who, Alex, I know you talked about him last year during the bowl season about him being a stud. I think, in my opinion, they're going to be my favorites to win the Sun Belt this year. I think Texas State is going to be absolutely incredible. But again, luckily for Appalachian State, they don't have to see Texas State until potentially the conference championship game. So I think that is a plus for them. JMU was a team that I had been really high on last year. But like you just said, starting quarterback, transfer out the program. I think it's going to take, while I think they always run a good program, I do think it's going to take them a little bit of time to figure out, these next steps there. And so I think with Appalachian State, this is their year where, I think that if they can go 10-2, go to the conference championship game and upset a team like Texas State, I think they're going to be, again, putting themselves in a position to potentially make the playoffs. I think their schedule is a little tough. I know they got to face, I think they go to Clemson, which is going to be a tough uphill battle. But to their credit, whenever they go up in that level of competition, they always play those teams tough. Last year, JMU was the prized possession of the conference. They went to JMU, took care of business, kind of unexpected there. So we seen last year as well. They played North Carolina. They played North Carolina tight as hell. Should have won the game, but ultimately choked away at the end, I believe. But I like App State. I think App State's always going to be game. And I think with their schedule, if they take care of business, they're another team that I think controls their own destiny in terms of putting themselves in position for the college football playoff.
App State's a good one, near and dear to my heart in no way whatsoever. But listen, been a solid program for, honest to God, going on for 20 years. Always good. They're down years. They're like 9-3. They're never bad. I agree with Cottrell. I think they're a little bit of a dark horse. They'll probably have a say in it when it's all said and done. The best part about all of this for me, if I'm being honest, is we touched on this last year. I know I'm super critical of the rankings, and you guys are a little bit too. But there was 2 or 3 shows in a row last year that we were all sitting here talking about how stupid it was that like Liberty wasn't ranked in the top 25. They were 11-0. And then you had you had teams with like 4 losses already that were continuing to be ranked. I think that's going to change this year because that is ultimately
matter. The bottom of the rankings matter.
Yep. Correct. So all these smaller schools are going to get their flowers this year, which is awesome. It's also for those programs to be able to go on TV or even on a streaming service or whatever. And even if it's in the 20s, but just be able to like North Texas or Texas State or whoever, be able to be like number 22 ranked or whatever. Like that, I don't think people realize how much that like even helps with like recruiting. You know what I mean? Like you get a kid that's like a fringe, 3 or 4 star, doesn't want to go to a big school, and it's like, oh man, like Liberty was ranked like 20th all year last year. Like now Liberty just picked up kind of like a blue chip kid that makes their program better. Like it has such a trickle down effect. And I think we're going to see it this year. Like I think 20 to 25, especially once you get to like week 5 or 6, I think a lot of it's going to be dominated by, group of 5 schools. And that's the way it should be. I think it's great. But yeah, like App State, I think will have a say in it. The crazy thing about, James Madison, the Dukes, is if their quarterback didn't leave, I think they're high on everybody's list to like possibly be the team. They return so much skill in other positions and experience, and they have a bunch of seniors on the defense. But it's like, especially at that level, like if you don't have a quarterback, it's it's almost as glaring as it is if you're an elite, power conference team. So, but we'll see what happens. I have no teams left. I think Alex does. I don't know if Cottrell does.
Yeah, one conference to talk about still, Bill. Just one.
Well,
and I know you'll have an opinion.
Yeah, I mean it's. I'm assuming you're going out west, and that'll be the team that I know we were gonna, talk about
actually, there's two teams, but whatever.
Ahead,
so
brother.
obviously, we'll start with the team. We'll start with the team that I know everyone's probably thinking about, and that's Boise State out in the Mountain West Conference. This is going to be an Ashton Jeanty show, 1,800 yards. I think that's how you say it, Jeanty. Jean, is it French? Jeanty? I don't know. Anyway, 1,800 yards from scrimmage last year, 19 touchdowns. Arguably the best football player in the Mountain West Conference, and could probably start on almost any team in the country he could be a starter for. They returned 11 starters on defense that allowed 25 points per game last year, so expect another year in the system to automatically drop that, probably another 3 points this year. I'm expecting them to give up 22 points a game. But the reason I don't know about them making the college football playoff, though, is because of their starting quarterback. We were just talking about how important quarterback is at this level, and I don't know anything about Maddox Madsen. He was announced the starter. We all anticipated Malachi Nelson being the starter, so that's kind of intriguing. Is it because they want Ashton Jeanty to be the main focal point of the offense, and they want someone who's not going to be going off script too much, or is it because he's just better? So we are gonna find out. I do think week 2 game against Oregon, I think a quarterback change might happen. We might see Malachi Nelson come in, depending on how that Boise State Oregon game goes. But Boise State's going to be a team to watch. Should be on a lot of people's list to make the college football playoff due to the returners on defense, due to Ashton Jeanty and his amazing backfield abilities. Boise State has a lot to look forward to this season, and I think their strength of schedule, especially having Oregon on there, if they can keep that game close, which I said last week, is something that I'm a little bit worried about. Their schedule or their schedule could look good enough to get into the college football playoff.
Bill, I just wanted to hop in real quick here because I know you got a lot more probably to say about Boise. As far as Malachi Nelson goes, everything I've been reading, and I've been high on Malachi since he was in high school. Like I remember before he committed, I basically said I had him. He was in the same class with Dante Moore and Jackson Arnold. I had Malachi as the best quarterback in the class, and I thought Dante Moore was second in that class. So for Malachi Nelson, everything that I've been reading and everything that I've been seeing is that he doesn't understand the nuances of the game. Like he can't read coverages, the progression through routes and things like that. Like he struggles with, apparently. That's why that's why he kind of got away from Lincoln Riley there, because you're not going to run Lincoln Riley's offense if you don't know what you're seeing out there, regardless of how talented you are. That's why personally, and again, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but that's why I have no worries about Caleb Williams going to the NFL, because I know he's going to know what he's seeing out there. And he comes from a great offensive mind there. But with Malachi, it's just really unfortunate, because I still think the kid is super talented, and I still think the kid could probably be, maybe a top 10 quarterback in all college football. I think he needs to have the same kind of humbling that we saw from Spencer Rattler a couple seasons ago, and ultimately just lock in and say, hey, as talented as I am, without being an asshole, I'm nothing. I can't win the job over this Maddox guy that no one's heard of, and I was a former 5-star. Nothing's going to be given to me. I have to work for everything I get at this point. So I think it'll be important for Malachi to see how he responds to this. I still think he has all the talent in the world. Boise State was a team I was super high on, and I know we're about to get into our predictions here really, really soon. I'm not going to lie, I'm with Alex on this one. The reason why you will not see Boise State on my list at number 12 is because Malachi Nelson, I thought, brought a different dynamic to them. I thought Malachi Nelson could be one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the playoff if Boise State were to make it there. I thought he was that talented. You go in with a guy like Maddox, I don't know where he ranks, even with the 12 teams that I have there. He's probably going to be 12th among all those quarterbacks there. I know he's still an unknown, and I know he can prove me wrong, but that's just where my mind went at when thinking about this Boise State team.
So Just real quick, I was going to go back to the Malachi stuff like you did. That's exactly where I was going. So, it's documented kind of the issues he had at USC. To your point, Lincoln Riley is a very, he's an offensive guru. That's what he is. Like that's why he gets these jobs. That's why he gets these quarterbacks. He develops them into NFL quarterbacks. But to your point, like you said, if you can't read a progression and say this guy's going to start here, but he's going to end up, between the second and third zone over there, and that's where the ball needs to go, you're not going to play for Lincoln Riley because it's a lot of anticipatory throws. It's a lot of, like you said, trusting your eyes on what you see, making the play in front of you. I think we need to give Boise a little bit of a break here, though, in regards to this. If it's true that Malachi was either that bad, then they really don't have a choice not to start him. You can't run him out there if he's just going to turn the ball over.
For sure.
Or B, if he's just not there yet, and I agree with everything you said, I really hope, like, if you're not familiar with him, when you're done watching us, go YouTube, his 7-on-7 stuff or anything like that. His physical gifts just jump off the screen. Like you'll like, if I gave you a tape to watch and you didn't know, who he was, I'd be like, which one of you guys, which one of you think this is the best quarterback? Like Cottrell said, you'll point to Malachi Smith. So it's all there. It's between years. It's between years. But anybody will tell you that's what makes good quarterbacks great, is how they process what they see, and also how they can be coached and how what kind of leader and stuff, like all the intangible stuff. It's super important to play quarterback. So hopefully, like we saw with Dante Moore, went to Oregon. Like, listen, how to be humbled a little bit. Going to go to a good program, knowing full well I'm going to sit this year. Do nothing but learn, study, get your reps of practice, get better, be ready to play. Hopefully that's the attitude Malachi has. Like, hopefully we don't get to the end of this year and we don't see him in the portal again. Hopefully that's where we end up with him. That being said, I'm still not writing Boise off. I think they're there at the end. I think we'll see how they play against Oregon this week, tonight, actually, like Alex said, or next week. Sorry. Who do you guys have tonight? Oh,
Idaho. I wish you were going there. Idaho has the coolest stadium.
Do they have weird colored turf too?
No, it's not weird color, but it's indoor and it's like super small.
That's what it is.
They have like the smallest. It's like 14,000 people.
Isn't Vanderbilt like super tiny too in indoor?
Vanderbilt's outdoor.
Yeah, it's SEC card. Indoor.
Syracuse has an indoor.
That's not small though. That's a carry on. That thing's huge.
Yeah, it's not.
It's either like one of the teams in Texas has one, and then there's a couple teams up there like I think Montana's outside, but like either like one of like the South Dakota states or one of them has an indoor one that only holds like 10,000 people, but it's like loud as hell because like everything just echoes and like people can't hear.
Might be
Who has it? And maybe it is Idaho. Who has the one that has like the field goal post like against the wall?
That's Idaho.
Is that Idaho? All right.
It is.
But anyway, get back on topic. I think Boise State still has a say. I know they have Oregon. I think they play Oregon State too. I think they'll win that game. So that is where I think I almost think what happens with Oregon doesn't matter. And God forbid if they do play them close and then turn around and beat Oregon State, the boost they're going to get from that, they're going to have something on their resume that none of these other teams can have. So that is where I still think Boise State has kind of an upper hand on other teams.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I did like Boise State. I like their running back. I like what they bring on back on defense. But I like a team a little bit better that actually beat Boise State last year, that beat another team that's strong in the Mountain West Conference in UNLV, and that's Fresno State. And they're returning a quarterback in Mikey King, 2,900 yards last season. They started off the season 8-1 before he got injured. And then they lost the last 3 games of the season before he came back and threw for almost 400 yards in their bowl game. And so with him coming back, hopefully staying healthy, I got Fresno State actually coming out of the Mountain West Conference this season.
And Bill, I did look up some stuff here for you. North Dakota State does also play in a dome.
I knew one of them did.
UTSA plays in a dome too.
That's why I said
Forgot about that.
Yeah, that's why I said Seminole, Texas has one.
Yeah, they play in. They say that it was originally built to be an NFL stadium, but San Antonio can never attract one, so they just gave it to UTSA.
There you go.
The more you know.
College knowledge is unbound. All right.
With Google,
so we've gone over all the teams. Time to see what we got. I believe mine are going up first.
Yes.
So I will go over. So the first slides you're going to see are what we predicted at the end of the show last year. This is before we knew everybody that was coming back or wasn't coming back. Before the portal, all that stuff. So I know for mine, seedings are probably a little bit off. I would say on mine, though, teams, I'm probably 10 out of 12, maybe 11 out of 12. And then the second slide you're going to see is what we all are individually, what we have for this year. Yep. So I'm going to go first. So I will go over mine quickly here.
Yeah, it's basically a trip down memory lane first, where we were at, like Bill said, pre everybody declaring and hitting the portal and all that stuff. And then it's where we stand today going into week 1 of the college football season.
All right, so this was my pre-one. I obviously had Michigan at number 2. The big thing with that is I felt pretty confident for a while anyway that J.J. McCarthy was going to come back. That's why I put them there. Obviously, he didn't. So I would obviously not have them in the 2 seed. Clemson is a 3 seed. I don't think is nuts. Arizona really is a 4 seed. It's not crazy. I don't think that's the way it ends up. But and then Georgia number 1 obviously is not nuts at all. And then I look at the left-hand column. I think all of these teams make the playoff this year. So maybe not in this exact seeding wise, but I think Notre Dame, Oregon, Texas, Boise State's probably the toss-up. But then Alabama, Utah, Ohio State, and Ole Miss, I think are all, more likely than not all going to make the playoff this year. So that was my pre-2025 one last year. I'll show you what I have now this year. All right. So I have Ohio State as the number 1 overall seed, followed by Georgia at 2. I have Clemson at 3, and then I have Utah winning the Big 12 at 4. The playing games, I have Notre Dame at 8 against Ole Miss at 9. Oregon is the 5 seed, the pretty much the top at-large seed against the Boise State Broncos, which we just mentioned. I have Texas rematch. I have Texas and Michigan as a rematch. And then I have Penn State and Alabama as the 7-10, which would be a rematch of their 1980 championship game. 2 throwbacks. That'll be a fun game. So advancing, I think as good as Notre Dame's defense is, and it's elite. I have no bones about that. I think Jackson, Dart, and company are eventually just going to score too many points. Notre Dame will have to come out of their comfort zone offensively. I got Ole Miss advancing to play Ohio State. Oregon, Boise State. It's probably not much different than the Oregon Liberty game last year. I think it'll be a rematch of what's going to happen early in the year, but they're going to have to travel to Oregon again. And I think Oregon just handles business there. Texas, Michigan will also be a rematch of a week 2 game. I will say, not to give anything away, we'll see. Still leaning one way on this, but I think maybe Texas gets revenge in that game, and I'll leave it at that. Michigan will have to travel down to Austin. And then Penn State hosting Alabama could be interesting. So, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this for the reason why. The way they schedule these games could matter. I think Alabama's the caveat I will put on this is if Penn State somehow gets lucky and gets the night game and that turns into a whiteout, that's a different story for me because I think it's that close of a game. If it ends up being, a 12 noon kick, me and Cottrell talked about this at length numerous times. I think Alabama goes in and takes care of business. Sets up a lot of great matchups in the second round. Alabama, Georgia, obviously they battle every year. SEC clash. Georgia's just too much. I got Georgia advancing. Texas versus Clemson. Again, I think Texas is just a better team. better conference. I think they have too much offense for Clemson. I'll go Texas. I think Oregon, too much offense again. I think Utah plays them tough for a half. Utah gets behind too much. They got to start throwing. I think that just plays right in the hands of Oregon. I think Oregon outscores them, moves on. Ohio State, Ole Miss, I think has the chance to be the best game of this round of playoffs by far. I think it could be a shootout. I think it could be Ohio State playing smart and controlling the clock. Either way, I think they have too much talent defensively. I think Ole Miss is going to struggle to get stops in that game. I like Ohio State. Ohio State, Oregon, probably the third time they play this year. No foreshadowing there, but they're going to play in Oregon. I think they play in the Big Ten championship game, and I think they're going to play in a college football playoff semifinal. That being said, not going to say for sure who wins the first two. I think Ohio State wins this one. Sorry, Alex. I was going to make one. I was going to make one of the two of you sad. It's the way it was going. It's the way it played out. Texas, Georgia again. I haven't come up with the right word for Texas yet, and I'm not going to come up with it until I see them play Michigan. But everybody just, and again, I'm falling for it too. I have them in the freaking semifinals, but I just look at. I think last year's team was so much better on paper than this year's team, and they still lost last year. I don't think they're better than Georgia regardless. I think Georgia moves on. I think we get the game ultimately that everybody thinks we're going to get. I could be wrong. I mean, listen, I won't fall out of my chair if Oregon beats Ohio State. I wouldn't fall out of my chair if Texas beat Georgia, especially Georgia at that point is going to be so battle-tested, but probably also mentally exhausted from playing like 6 top 10 teams at this point. It's going to be a grind for the Bulldogs. But that being said, as we sit here right now, I think Ohio State and Georgia are the two best teams in the country. I think Oregon is a mini step behind, and I mean that. I'm not antagonizing you. I think they're the smallest step behind. And then I think it's a little bit of a drop. Again, this is me kind of on my limb on this one. I think it's a little bit of a drop to Texas and Bama and Penn State and all those teams. So ultimately I go Ohio State and Georgia, trying right now not to throw up and say this, but I just God, I part of me is happy because it'll be back-to-back for Big Ten. But I think I said it last week. I think if you watch Ohio State this year on a black and white TV and there's no colors and you didn't know what they did, I think you're going to be like, this looks a lot like Michigan football from last year. And I think if they do that, I think if they don't put the weight of the world on Will's shoulders, they use those 2-star running backs, an elite either 1A or 1B best defenses in the country, and just play smart football, I think it's going to look a lot like Michigan football last year. And I think Ohio State's going to win the national championship.
Boring.
Not if you're an Ohio State fan.
Nobody's an Ohio State fan.
Well, that's not true.
Thanks. So I believe I'm next here. I am. So clearly,
Colorado,
a little bit of delusion here on my end. I thought Colorado, for whatever reason, was going to hit the portal hard, and I mean, granted, they did.
They did.
The opposite direction.
They just didn't hit it as hard as they needed it. They needed to. But pretty much everybody else, I mean, I still think they have a formidable shot at making it. Obviously, Florida State losing week 0 puts them behind the 8 ball a bit there. But I mean, if they win the ACC, they're going to be there. So Georgia, Colorado I'm out on. I think for what it's worth, I think Colorado is going to be bowl eligible this year. But with that said, still not making the college football playoff this year. But on the left side, Ole Miss, Michigan, Texas, Boise State. Although I just said 20 minutes ago I'm out on Boise, I wouldn't be super surprised if they still made it. I mean, they're a good team. I just don't think that they're at that level without Malachi being their starter. And then Penn State, Notre Dame, Alabama, and Oregon, you're going to see them in 5 seconds when I go on to where I'm at right now. So just taking a look here of ultimately how I see things going down here.
You got a rematch too.
top 4 seeds here. I like Georgia, Ohio State, Florida State still, and Utah. I think Florida State's still going to win the ACC. One way or another, I think they're going to find a way to win it. I think Mike Norvell is a really good coach, and he's going to get those guys back on track there. I got Georgia's number 1 just because although their schedule is absolutely brutal, I think if they find a way to run the table, they win the SEC and beat all these great teams. As good as Ohio State resume would be, I think Georgia's just variety of their schedule and all the amount of ranked teams they beat would still put them at that number 1 seed there. And then as far as my 5 through 12, I got A&M at 5, Penn State at 6, Bama at 7, Texas at 8, Michigan at 9, Oregon at 10, Notre Dame at 11, and UTSA being my number 12 seed, my group of 5 team, ultimately making it in.
I'm sorry, 10?
See, I was just going to say,
10?
Just
10?
I had you guys at 5. Just remember that. I had you at 5.
For what it's worth.
You got Michigan at 9. There are 3 lost. You know what? They're a 3 lost team. What the?
Yo, don't come at me,
Alex. Hear me out. I think you guys are only going to have 2 losses on your schedule. I think one of them is going to be to Michigan. I don't know how the committee will value you guys. I still think you guys potentially make it to the Big Ten championship game. Even if Michigan has those 3 losses, I think a head-to-head would be valued more. That's why I put you guys right next to each other. 9-10. You guys know I got Penn State going to the Big Ten championship game, so I had to put them ahead of both of you. As far as Texas goes, I think Texas is going to be the first team out of the SEC championship game. A&M, I had A&M going to their conference championship game, so it's not like I'm just fully disrespecting you guys here. I just think it's going to be tight, and I'm also going to be real with you. I know how the SEC bias works. You could say the Big Ten bias is going to start happening a little bit more now that we have the super conferences. But even if I think Oregon and Michigan are going to be better teams than what Alabama and Texas are, the reality of the situation is if everyone here has 1-2 losses, we know the SEC teams are going to be ranked higher than what the Big Ten teams are. So just wanted to put that out there. At least I got you guys in. I got you as the 10 seed. And look, I still think you're better than Alabama. I got you beating them. So in reality, you could be as high as 7 in my book. So, calm it down over there, Alex. But
I had you at 5, and I had you in the semis.
And I got you in the quarters. You got to unfortunately play Ohio State again, and you're going to see how that goes for you in October and December. But regardless, we'll get back on track here. First rematch on the docket. You got Texas against Michigan here. This is a game. I always say it's tough to beat the same team twice in the same season. I think this game can ultimately really go either way. Lean Texas wasn't hard for me to lean that way. Obviously, not a big fan of Michigan here, and I think they have more uncertainty at the quarterback position. Trust Quinn more than I would trust Alex Orji in a game like this, and this would be getting played down in Texas as well. So I had Texas with a slight lean there. Second game, I think Texas A&M takes care of business at College Station against UTSA. I think it'd be a fun ride for UTSA, and them staying in state, and I think their fans will travel well for a playoff game, but this is the end of the road for you. Penn State, Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is going to be one of the most overrated teams of this year. You have Riley Leonard going over from Duke. I think he's overrated, and I think he's a bad fit for their system. You had Sam Hartman come in last year, who was a great down the field thrower of the ball and can push the ball downfield. And you saw what kind of training wheels they put on him. I think with a guy like Riley Leonard, I mean, I shouldn't say he's a bad fit because he actually is going to do exactly what they want him to do. They want to take care of the ball, don't do anything spectacular. But I just think that's boring, and that's not going to be good for Notre Dame, and that's not how they're going to be able to beat good teams. So I like Penn State to advance there. And then Alabama versus Oregon. Although I have Alabama ranked higher, I think Oregon is a better football team. I think Oregon is going to be one of the top 5 teams in the country. I just think that the way their schedule falls and ultimately like how they have to travel, things like that. I think they just slip and go to the 10 seed there. But I do like Oregon to advance. Just staying down there at the bottom there, looking at Ohio State versus Oregon. I think this is going to be the second time that these teams face off against each other. Wouldn't be surprised if it's the third team. I'm looking at these teams objectively on both sides of the ball. I think Ohio State is the better team. I think they have better players on offense and better players on defense. Although it's close, I just give slight edge to Ohio State there. In the Florida State versus Penn State game, I don't think Florida State's that good. I think they just earned the bye from winning a weaker ACC. And I think Penn State takes care of business. This is going to be a neutral site game. And so I think with Penn State, their defense definitely will travel, and they'll have DJU checking the ball down all day long. And I think with Penn State's rushing attack, they'll be able to control clock and take care of time possession there. I think it'd be too much for Florida State to overcome. Next game, like Utah versus Texas A&M. I love this matchup here. I think this is going to be a battle of two completely different styles. I think Utah is going to try and make this game dirty and muddy water it and just really try to make Texas A&M very uncomfortable. But on the flip side of it, I think, A&M is going to be more of a finesse team. They're going to try and score as many points as possible, things like that. So I think this is one of those games that's super tight at the half, but ultimately Texas A&M pulls it out. I just don't think Utah would have enough offense to beat a team like Texas A&M. Then on top, I think this is probably the blowout of the quarters here. I think Georgia mightily handles Texas, especially coming off of a bye. I think that defense would be way too much for Quinn and company to handle, just with the receiving court they have and how good I think Georgia's defense will be this year. Now, moving on to the semis, I got a rematch. If you guys have been keeping track at home, this is a rematch of the SEC championship game and a rematch of my Big Ten championship game. I like Georgia over A&M. I think Georgia, roster-wise, is going to be one of the two best rosters in all of college football, so I think they get it done there for the second time this year. And then Ohio State versus Penn State, again, I think this is a game that could potentially be pretty close. I think this would be the third time that these teams have faced off against each other. And if I had to put my money on a coach in these two situations, Ryan Day or James Franklin, I'm taking Ryan Day all day long. So that leads me to my championship game. I got Georgia versus Ohio State. I think this is going to be one of those game of the centuries. We saw the last time these two were on the field against each other that it was one of those classic games. But I think the script's going to be different this time because where there's a will, there's a way. I think Will Howard being the X factor in the game, being able to utilize his rushing abilities on offense and keeping Georgia on their toes, just giving an extra defender that Georgia will need to account for in that box to account for Will Howard's running ability. I think it gives them that slight edge. And if Ohio State is in a spot where they just need to bleed clock, I think they got two running backs that have the ability to do that. And just like Bill, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes coming out as my national champions for the season.
Boring. All right. Sweet. Finally did the good stuff. So this is what? Am I way too early? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, Georgia, Arizona, obviously before we had the coaching change that happened in the offseason. Clemson, I thought that Dabo Swinney might, kick it into gear as far as the transfer portal would have happened, and that didn't happen. Kansas State, Penn State. Yeah, I mean, besides Boise State, I think all my teams – actually, I have 4 teams on this that aren't in my up-to-date bracket. Go ahead and run it, Cottrell.
Can we stop playing freaking Texas? Good Lord. See, now I'm glad Cottrell did what he did.
Oh, you're glad. Okay, perfect. Good. All right, so this is my college football playoff bracket that I predicted. Obviously, we got Oregon as the 1 seed. I do think that they do go undefeated. If they do have a loss, it would be to Ohio State early in the year, but they are obviously as the 1 seed, the Big Ten champions. I do have Miami as the 2 seed. I do have Miami going undefeated with the weak ACC, but because of Oregon's strength of schedule, that's why they're the 1 seed, Big Ten champion over ACC champion. That's kind of how I have that in my mind. And I got Ole Miss, who during our SEC show, I said would be the SEC champion this year over Georgia. Ole Miss in the 3 spot, and then Kansas State, my Big 12 champion, in the 4 hole. Now for the first round matchups, let's start right away with Penn State, Alabama. So, Bill, I also had the Penn State-Alabama matchup where you had Alabama winning. I actually have Penn State pulling it out. On a neutral field, I'd say it's a different outcome, but Alabama would need to go up north to State College, Pennsylvania, where December temps are average high of 38 and a low of 24. That's a lot different than the conditions they will be practicing in Alabama, which is about mid-60s in that time of year. So I think that ultimately kind of dictates the outcome of the game, and Penn State wins that one 24-17. And then we got the Georgia-Fresno State, the Mountain West Conference champion, coming in, going up against Georgia. Fresno State will have a fantastic year and claim the Mountain West crown, but with any team in this situation, Georgia is just going to manhandle the Bulldogs. I think it's a close first half, but I think Georgia wins it 49-24. Fresno State's got some really good pieces on offense. I think they would be able to move the ball a little bit against Georgia. Then we go Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Notre Dame going to Ohio State. Ohio State kind of takes care of business there. Notre Dame did not have a tough schedule, but Ohio State takes care of business after losing the Big Ten championship. I think they beat Notre Dame 31-10, take care of business there. Then we got Arizona, who I don't have them winning the Big 12, but I'm still high enough on Arizona, and after looking at their schedule, besides a loss to K-State, I don't know if they lose another game. So I think that they do find a way to sneak in to the Big 12 championship. And I do think that they lose that game to Kansas State, but I think they have a good enough resume and results to make the college football playoff. And they go up against Texas A&M. And this is solely based on Connor Weigman staying healthy all year. I've been on this bandwagon before, and I've been let down. So with Mike Elko, he's now given me the permission to have faith again. And so hopefully that works out. Wait, 1 second. Sorry. I was reading the wrong thing. Which game was I on? Was I on Ohio State, Notre Dame? Which one was I on?
Arizona A&M.
I stopped paying attention when Michigan was on your bracket.
Wow, bro. I'm sorry, man. Yeah, thank you. So Mike Elko gives me a reason to believe in Texas A&M for one more season. I do think this is a close game, but A&M pulls it out 38-35. I wasn't high on A&M, but Bill, you convinced me otherwise. But when we get into the second round games, we got Oregon versus Penn State. That is a matchup that we all wanted to see in the regular season in the Big Ten. We didn't get a chance to see it. We do now. I think Oregon goes into that game, takes care of business, and takes care of it pretty handedly against Penn State. I got Kansas State against Georgia. Obviously, same situation as before. I think Georgia's offensive and defensive lines are going to be able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball and kind of take care of business pretty handedly, getting on to the semifinals. This was the hardest one to choose for me, and that's the Ole Miss-Ohio State quarterfinal game. Obviously, we got Quinshon Judkins going up against his old team. The stories could write themselves. But what I do is I give the advantage to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin knows the type of player Quinshon Judkins is. He knows how to kind of bottle him up. I know that there's 2 running backs in Ohio State, but I think that Ole Miss's defense is going to be able to kind of keep it down, and we're going to be able to force Will Howard to beat us. And that's where they're going to find their problems. And I think that's where Ole Miss is going to pull away and make it to the semifinals. Miami, they do go undefeated, but Texas A&M is by far the most physical team they would have played all season. And I think Texas A&M sends Mario Cristobal packing home. And I think Texas A&M takes care of business and moves on to the semifinals. So I do have a 10 seed making it to the semis. And I'm going to stand behind that. In that first semi, we got Ole Miss versus Texas A&M. Like I said, Connor Weigman's only played 9 games in his 2-year career due to injuries, and this would be game 15 for him. I think fatigue may set in at some point. And Jackson Dart is going to stay right in that hot hand with a slew of running backs, keeping it fresh in the backfield. I think Ole Miss takes care of business 30-17. Then we got Oregon versus Georgia, Darth Vader versus Obi-Wan, Dan Lanning versus Kirby Smart. It's the stories again, they write itself. Defensive coordinator, nemesis. It's going to be a fantastic game. I do think Oregon takes care of business. Oregon's going to win the game 32-31, and I think trips to the red zone are going to count. Last season, Georgia's one real weakness was in the red zone, giving up 33 scores in 36 attempts, 91% of the time allowing opposition to score. The Ducks are one of the best red zone teams between trickery, options, and other sorts of plays. That they are going to dominate in the red zone in that game and pull away. I think the game is close, though, 32-31. Oregon takes care of business. Oregon Ole Miss championship game. These are the two teams I was really high on ending last year and going into this offseason. I always talked about Oregon, always talked about Ole Miss, and I'm going to keep them playing each other in the championship game. I do have Oregon taking care of business. As Bill always says, Lane Kiffin will find a way to lose a game, and this is going to be the game that he finds a way to lose, and Oregon takes care of business and starts the dynasty.
Well, that's convenient for you.
I know, right?
And they get all this championship, and then he forgets how to coach. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, against Dan Lanning.
Look, Jackson Dart and Dylan Gabriel, if we had that quarterback matchup, it's going to be fantastic. I mean, you have two possible Heisman hopefuls. If Jackson Dart Ole Miss, are able to make it to the college football playoff, he's going to be in talks. And Dylan Gabriel should be the number 2 career passing yards, or ranked in the career passing yards. I mean, these two are great. Yeah. It's too early, man. I'm done talking. You've seen my bracket. Oregon wins it. Ohio State sucks. Let's go.
Yawn.
Bill, I do think this is a situation where Michigan is the 12th seed and is the one that gets forced out.
I don't want to hear pity.
I was going to say, he's giving you the pity.
I can't put a 3-loss team in the college football playoff, man. And I don't have Texas in here either.
Why is Oregon there?
Because they ain't losing 3 games.
All right, so there are our official early 2025 brackets.
Early,
but they are they're set in stone now. So we will obviously revisit these come January. I would say I think everyone had at least 8 or 9 of the same team. So it'll be really interesting to see if it goes chalk, or if if an A&M does sneak in, or an Arizona, or teams like that could make it interesting. So that will be fun to come back to for sure. So,
and there's some big teams that we didn't have either. Like LSU is a big team that could easily work their way in there. I don't think they do, but like they are a big name team that can do that. Or USC, which is, I know we're getting into the previews here soon. But
Clemson wasn't on mine or yours. Or was that on yours, Cottrell? Did you have Clemson winning?
No, it wasn't on mine. No.
Yes, so 2 of the 3 didn't have Clemson. So I mean,
and then some of us picked Florida State. Like I think Gene did as well. Picked Florida State when the ACC. Dummies. So like Florida State's one of those teams that could or could not. I mean, they could have a disastrous season where they win 5 games, or they could turn it around and go 11-1. We're like, hey, how the hell did this team lose to Georgia Tech week 0?
Well, without further ado, let's get into it, boys. It's game preview time, week 1. We're going to start with the aforementioned Penn State Nittany Lions, number 8 in the country, traveling down to Morgantown, West Virginia. Morgantown.
West Virginia.
There you go. Listen, not an easy place to play. Great college town if you've never been there. Campus is actually gorgeous as well. It's kind of built into the side of a mountain. That stadium's loud. That place will be rocking later today. This is not an easy trip. Not an easy trip. I've been telling everybody that. This may or may not be one of my picks at the end of the show. But let's get into it. Penn State, everything quarterback Drew Aller. Going to go down with his running back tandem. And an elite defense led by Abdul Carter, who's going to switch to the edge this year. They're going to play West Virginia team that offensively can put up points and defensively improved last year. Last 5 games, like I said, last 5 games in the Big 12 last year only gave up 20 points per game. The spread opened at 11.5. It's down to 8.5. All the money's coming in on West Virginia. Not to win, but it's driving the spread down big time. This is not an easy football game. If you look at it, 8 versus unranked, you think, okay, and Penn State goes down there, whatever. I'm telling you right now, it's not an easy football game. Not an easy football game. Penn State goes down there and does not play well. If they go down there and they do not play well, they can easily lose this game. You guys can hop in here at any time, go over your specifics, but I think it's a tricky it's a tricky spot for Penn State to be in on the road, breaking in a new offensive coordinator with a quarterback, really kind of doing a lot of things for the first time. It's a game where I think Penn State has to be careful. If they don't turn the ball over and they just rely on that elite defense, I think they get out of West Virginia with a win. Any of those things don't happen, then I think it gets real interesting.
I mean, for me, West Virginia is, of course, a sneaky one of those sneaky good teams, and I hate to even say the term "sneaky good," but I feel like it's appropriate for them because they're unranked. As good of a season as they had last year, and as much as they brought back this year, you could argue that West Virginia could have had a claim to be in the top 25. So I hate to use that moniker for them, but just given the perception of them, I think it's realistic for me to say that they're sneaky good there. With that said, I think West Virginia is going to play them hard, but at the end of the day, I'm rolling with Penn State here. I think Penn State's ability to run the ball and run the ball consistently with the two-headed attack they have with Katron and Nick, I think that's going to be just too much for West Virginia to handle, especially late. I think this game's tight at halftime. I think this is one of those 13-6, 13-10 games at halftime, and their Penn State's offensive coordinator is going to make changes, the accurate changes that they need to make. I think you're going to see Drew start to open up a little bit more, maybe start to see some play action open up a little bit more for that Penn State offense, and I think they get it rolling in the second half. Ultimately, I think it really ends right around that spread. I think I could see this being a 31-21 or a 31-23 kind of game there, maybe a late field goal, or West Virginia's down 2 possessions. They kick an onside kick at the end of the game, and they don't get it, and that's really that. But I think Penn State's going to be within either 8, somewhere between 8 to 13 points. I think that's ultimately where the margin of victory falls for them. But I don't think they're ever in any serious danger late in that game.
Well, Penn State's got a great defense, and I expect that to be the case this year as well. One thing I kind of want to focus on is West Virginia has 2 things that makes an upset seem real easy to conceive, and that's a strong running attack. They averaged 228 yards per game last year on the ground, and a mobile quarterback. And Garrett Green is exactly that. He said he ran for over 100 yards last season 3 separate times, and it had 71 yards rushing in this game last year against Penn State on 9 carries. So he's already shown what he can do against his defense with his legs. And I think ultimately it's going to come down to him getting out of the pocket and making things happen for himself, converting a 3rd and long, keeping the momentum rolling. I do think Penn State's going to win this game, but I do think, like I said, averaging 36 points per game last year in Penn State and then still getting a new offensive coordinator, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that the first half, like you said, it's going to be a little bit close. I think it's going to take a little bit for that Penn State offense to get a groove, get a rhythm. I do think that they're actually behind at half and have to come back and win. I think that West Virginia covers the spread. I think it's at 7.5 now, actually, Bill. I think that West Virginia covers that spread, but I do think that Penn State will win this game, but I think it's going to be a real slow start with the new offense and kind of the offense getting in rhythm. And look for this game to be last week's Georgia Tech Florida State situation, because West Virginia has that kind of push up front and that kind of running game where they can make a difference with ball control and controlling the clock.
Yeah, so, Alex already mentioned Garrett Green. The kid's a gamer. Almost 1,300 yards on the ground running last year with another 1,500 through the air. I already mentioned the one big thing that's a little bit of a concern for me is Penn State is they took Abdul Carter out of the middle of the field. He was an elite linebacker, converted him to an edge. I have no doubt that he's going to wreak havoc on the edge. My issue becomes you now have an inexperienced linebacker core against a team, on a defense that, if we're being honest, when push came to shove last year against both Michigan and Ohio State, could not stop the run. Just be honest. You now took your best defender out of the middle of the field, and you're going against a mobile quarterback, like Alex says. Can they contain him? Yes, but if they don't, like Alex said, he's capable of running for 30, 40 yards at a pop. The kid's a good athlete. Garrett Green can run. It's kind of like Alex said, at the end of the day, I don't think Penn State loses this game, but all the ingredients are there for West Virginia to win this football game. If this game was week 2, if this game was next Saturday and not later today, I would feel way more confident about Penn State winning. Going out, be able to beat up on somebody, get all the kinks out of this new offense, get Drew Aller and the OC on the same page. If that was all done before, I would love Penn State way more in this game. That being said, I think West Virginia scores late to make it real interesting. I think Penn State comes out with a W, but I think this is a very close football game. I really do. I don't see this game being Penn State wins by 13, 17 points or something like that. I really don't. West Virginia likes to throw the ball downfield too. I think they're going to test those 2 new cornerbacks as well. So ultimately, I think Penn State gets it done, but everything is there for West Virginia to hang in this game. Next up, the Miami Hurricanes versus Florida at the Swamp. Rivalry game, non-conference game, everything we love about week 1, everything. Everything. I thought for a second this is a neutral site game, and it's not. This is in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. They are going to the Swamp. I can't stress to you how important this game is for Billy Napier and the Gators. We've talked about it already. Their schedule is brutal. They have the hardest schedule in the country. Miami's got a lot to prove. You all know how Alex feels about Mario Cristobal. The spread tells you everything you need to know about this game. Again, you look at it on the paper, Miami's ranked, Florida's not. Florida's been down for the better term of a decade now, for being honest. And I think a lot of people look at this like, Miami's going to go on a roll. Don't think so. Rivalry game, I think Florida comes out inspired. Maybe that's the right word. I think a lot of people are just, I think people have been shitting on the program for a decade now. It's not. I don't think a lot of people realize how dominant the Gators were for like a 20-year span, and they just haven't been that in a long time. Miami's kind of on the rebuild as well. Somebody's got to win the game. I think the Swamp definitely plays a factor. It's going to be hot. It's going to be a good game. Cam Ward makes his debut for the Hurricanes, and that offense, do they have enough to get it done? Guys, what do you think?
Man, I don't know, man. Florida's win-loss over-under is 4.5. If they're going to get the over, they have to win this game. And if Billy Napier has any chance of saving his job, he has to start this season 1-0. And if the only way they can start the season 1-0 is by keeping Graham Mertz on his feet and off his ass, he was sacked 31 times last year, 8 games over 3 times. Most of the time was 3 or 4 sacks a game last season. They got to keep him upright for Graham Mertz to make something happen. None of us are huge Graham Mertz fans, but this is his last chance to show something along with Billy Napier. Then you got Miami. I hate Mario Cristobal, as you kind of already alluded to, but the man can recruit. All right, he landed arguably 2 of the best players in the transfer portal. Cam Ward, probably top 5 transfer portal QB, and Damian Martinez, a very underrated, undervalued running back out of Oregon State. This could be one of the better Miami teams, like Bill said, or in the last decade, easily. I do think that Florida is going to be inspired. I do think that it will start off close, and I do think that Miami is going to be the better team. I think that front 7 of Miami is going to control the offensive line and push them around, do whatever they want. I think they're going to get to Graham Mertz at least 4 times later on today. And I think Miami takes care of business in the second half, and I got Miami covering the 2.5-point spread.
All right. Well, this will be the first time that we differ. I'm on the Florida Gators side here. I don't think they're the better team. I just think they're in a better situation as we sit here now. I think Miami having to travel up to Gainesville to play in the Swamp is definitely going to be huge for them. And I think if Billy Napier is ever going to have his team ready to go, it's going to be in this game. While I understand Cam Ward is very impressive and Damian Martinez is a really good pickup for them, I think that Miami team still has a lot of question marks. I think this is the time to exploit them. And like you mentioned, Alex, Mario Cristobal is on the sidelines for that Miami team. I think if this game is tight, I am fully expecting that he thinks that this game is going to be a walk in the park, and Florida isn't really that good, and they're going to go there and just take care of business. Very similar. It keeps getting brought back up, but very similar to the mindset of Florida State playing against Georgia Tech. I think Florida needs to be smart here. I know ETN is no longer there. Well, they got Montrell Johnson, who is going to be a stud for them this year in the backfield. I think they have to be consistent in running the football, and Graham Mertz will need to limit his turnovers. I'm rolling with Florida here. I think Florida will take care of business. It's going to be a lower scoring game, but I think this is going to be the first blip on Miami's schedule this year.
I hate to do it, but I'm gonna go with Miami. I trust Cam Ward more than I trust Graham Mertz. I think he makes a play somewhere down the stretch that matters. I think the spread tells you all you need to know. I really don't trust either coach, if I'm being 100% honest. But I think Miami just has a little bit of better roster. I think a little bit better offense, a little bit easier for them to move the ball. I'm going to take Miami in a tight one.
You want to hear a crazy stat just before no one look it up? How many interceptions do you think Graham Mertz had last year? This is going to shock you.
It's probably not a lot. It's probably I feel like I saw this. It was like 4 or something.
He got hurt late. 5, 6.
He only had 3 interceptions last year.
Yeah,
like as bad as he played, you think that like he would have had a lot more. But I was like doing some research on Florida, and I was like, dang, Graham Mertz does not turn the ball over. Not a very good quarterback, but he will not throw an interception.
Well, I mean, I think that's going to be big for them. Like, he needs to take care of the ball. I will say, when he was at Wisconsin, I want to say that's part of the reason why he ran out of town, because he was throwing too many interceptions there.
We definitely turned that around. But that's enough about Florida, enough about Graham Mertz. I've said his name too many times today already.
Moving on
up.
Next.
First ranked versus ranked matchup. USC Trojans, LSU Tigers, 23 versus 13. And this will be in Las Vegas.
Tomorrow night in Vegas.
Tomorrow night. This is a Sunday night game. This game is not tonight. So do not look for this on your TV guide, because it will not be there. They play tomorrow night. It's a Labor Day. It's a holiday special.
How old are you?
Listen, TV guides used to be the shit. You don't know nothing.
I know. No, I did when I was like 8 years old, bro.
Bill was in college.
Jesus. All right. Relax.
I'm a choke.
Shots for everybody.
USC Trojans, Miller and Company, Lincoln Riley, offense. I think we all agree is going to be there. Defense, are they still playing flag football? Are they actually going to tackle people this year? I'm trying to think. LSU Tigers, Gus Neumeyer, and I don't know what else we know they have so far. I think that's the interesting part. I think it's going to be a really rebuilt team. They lost so much on the offensive side of the ball last year, and how much they've come back on defense. Are they more physical this year? I think a lot of people are wondering how LSU's ranked 13th after watching, kind of how they played last year with all that talent. So this is an interesting game. This is a really interesting game. I've seen so many people pretty much just fall on both sides of this. I know which way I'm going to go. I'll let you guys hop in here, and see what you think.
I'll go here real quick, just because I know my breakdown of this is going to be quick here. I think I can see this game honestly going either direction. And I think that there's question marks on both sides, and I said it on Wire to Wire, but I don't think this game is going to be indicative of how the seasons can go for either of these teams. I think USC can win this game against this number 13 LSU, and they still end the season with 3 or 4 losses, and we're not even discussing them in college football playoff talks. And I think that LSU can win this game as well against this USC team that's ranked 23. And again, I think they can get in their conference schedule and lose 3 or 4 games. And we're like, how the hell did USC lose to this LSU team early in the season? Ultimately, for me, I'm rolling with Miller Moss here and that USC Trojans team. I think that USC's offense is going to be able to take it to LSU's defense. We've seen in years past, Brian Kelly usually does not come out the gate pretty strong. We saw that in the Florida State run that they had that kicked off the Brian Kelly era over there with LSU. So I think I think Lincoln and company will be ready to go. And I think it's big that USC went out and got UCLA's defensive coordinator from last year. I think that's going to be a big move for them. I think the defense will be much better. The question mark there is how long does it take them to adapt to his system? I think with what they have offensively, they'll be able to have enough input to outscore that LSU team. I see this being a game like 34-31, something along the lines of that. But I think when it's all said and done, when USC needs to get a stop, I can't believe I'm saying this because it's probably the first time I've ever said such a thing. I think their defense is going to step up to the plate, and Brian Kelly is going to lose LSU this game.
This game is very interesting. Being played at a neutral field in Vegas, I think it will feel like a home game for USC. Vegas is not that far of a travel from Southern California. You got
travels, bro.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm going to say I think you will see more red and gold in the stands than you will purple and gold. But you got two fun offenses versus two terrible defenses with new coordinators. We truly do not know what to expect. Caleb Williams is gone. Jaden Daniels is gone. Two wide receivers for LSU gone to the NFL deservingly. But both of these fan bases have some exciting stuff to be, some good stuff to be excited about, especially starting with the quarterbacks. You got Newsmeyer for LSU, 395 yards in the bowl game and 3 touchdowns. And then Miller Moss came out of nowhere for 372 yards of his own with 6 TDs in their bowl game. But USC is going to win this game, and the reason they're going to win this game is because they're going to give Zachariah Branch the ball. Something that they did last year at the beginning of the year is they gave him the ball, and then as the season went on, he got less and less touches, and the offense got less and less efficient. It's going to be the Miller Moss Zachariah Branch show. The over/under being at 64.5 to me is insulting. I think this game could go back and forth. I bet we see the punters 2 times this game. And I think it's going to be closer to like a 49-46 game. We could see a team score in the 50s. I think USC does pull it out. And I think it's a very high-scoring game. And I think Zachariah Branch is going to be the difference.
I love that you brought him up just real quick here. Zachariah Branch is one of those guys that a lot of people internally at USC was comparing to Reggie Bush. They weren't saying he's as good as Reggie Bush, but his explosion, his speed, and his ability to cut and his agility – they said reminded him a lot of Reggie Bush. And I know he got hurt last year, so the breakout didn't happen as much. And like Alex said, once he came back, he wasn't included in the offense as much. But Zachariah Branch is a name to really look out for this year because I know we haven't talked about him at all through the first 5 episodes this year. But I really think if this USC offense can be as good as we all think it probably can be, I think Zachariah Branch could be a name that we're quietly talking about in Heisman talks up until later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately what hurts him is it's going to be, the overall, success of the team, which I think is ultimately probably what crushes him a little bit this year. I'm going to go against both you guys on this one. I love the offense. I do. I love everything about the USC offense. I just think LSU's defense is probably still light years ahead of USC's. I don't think LSU's offense is going to be, some, boring or, even with what they lost last year. I mean, they bring in 5-star wide receivers every single year. Gus Newmeyer is a kid that's really never had a shot. He's going to get it now. I think he's capable. I just have to see USC stop somebody. I'll be a believer when I see it. If they could show me they got better since last year and they can actually start tackling and get stops and get off the field on 3rd down, then maybe I'll start buying into USC a little bit. But until I see it, I'm not going there. Their best returning player from last year transferred out. They're legit starting 11 new kids on that side of the ball. It's going to be interesting to say the least.
It's going to be hard to find 11 kids worse than last year's 11.
You say that, but I mean, you never. We've been saying this for a couple of years now. We've been saying it for a couple of years. So. Again, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm very interested to watch this game tomorrow night for sure. I love that it's on a Sunday night. I'm curious to see what USC looks like. I really am. As I sit here right now, though, I'm just going to take LSU. I'm just not a believer yet until I see it for USC.
All right, we got 2 more.
2 more to go, and then pick them.
The nightcap of tonight.
I am picking this game, so I'm not going to go too far in depth on this one. I'm just going to tell you that the better quarterback in this game is not getting the publicity, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, so I'll go here because I make no bones about it. I haven't been hiding my Texas A&M love at all at this point so far in the season. You guys know I got them going to the SEC championship game. You guys know I had them going to the semifinal in the college football playoff at this point. And you guys know I think that Notre Dame is going to be one of the more overrated teams of the year. So with all that said, Notre Dame's traveling to College Station and to play at Kyle Field week 1 of the season against this Texas A&M team. I'm rolling with Texas A&M here. I think Mike Elko knowing exactly what Riley Leonard's deficiencies are is going to be huge. He knows what Riley Leonard is really good at, what concepts he likes to run, things like that. While he won't know exactly what plays are coming, he will know, hey, if it's 3rd and 8, Riley Leonard's tendencies are to look at the out in the boundary, or he knows that, hey, there's probably going to be a dig breaking in here at the, 15 yards into his stem, just because that's the route that he loves to hit when he gets these certain looks, because that's what we've coached him to do. So I think that will play a big part in this game for them, and I think Texas A&M will be able to slow down that Notre Dame offense. The other thing is that this Notre Dame team is coming in with no estimate from last year. They bring in Riley Leonard. I think there are going to be a lot of question marks with them rushing the football. They got some guys that had production from last year, but Estime was the bell cow for him. And I think losing him and trying to figure that out week 1 against Texas A&M on the road will be tough. I like A&M to win this game, and I like them to cover I think it's a 2.5 point spread as well.
It is. Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it. The Mike Elko, Riley Leonard relationship, I think, definitely favors Mike Elko as far as how he prepares his defense, tendencies to look for, especially as a play breaks down. You can only have so many moves as far as like a 3-second count, then he's going to tuck it and run. Like, tell your defenders to have some sort of timing before you kind of go after him. I think that's going to benefit them exceptionally. Another part of the game that we're not really talking about for Texas A&M is Le'Veon Moss. He only had 95 carries last year, 7.6 yards per carry. For almost 100 carries, continuously keeping up that average is impressive. Him getting the full slate of handoffs this year, that'll be a nice piece to the puzzle. And then, of course, you got this fact that we haven't even mentioned. 6 is the magic number. 6 games. That's how many starts Notre Dame's offensive line has had in the career of the 5 starters that will be starting today. And I think that the lack of experience is going to hurt them. I think Riley Leonard is going to get pressured. I think Riley Leonard is going to get sacked. I think Riley Leonard's not going to have more than 20 rushing yards this game, which is a huge part of Riley Leonard's offensive package. I think A&M takes care of business, and I'm pretty sure that 2.5 line is probably your safest bet of the weekend.
And it's funny too, Alex, because it's almost like you're kind of in my mind here, because I'm glad you brought up Moss. Moss is a phenomenal back, but that's a stable that has 3 backs that are more than capable of getting the job done. You got Moss, and the reason why he was so limited on his carries is because of the backs who were there with him. Reuben Owens is going to be a stud for them as well this year. He's going to be getting a lot of the load there. And they also had E.J. Smith transferring from Stanford as a grad transfer, who is Emmitt Smith's son. So they have 3 backs that are more than capable of getting the job done there. So I absolutely love that you brought up that fact. And then with Connor Wegman, I mean, I think I said on Wire to Wire, I think he's the best kept secret in all of college football. I think the kid's going to go be a first-round pick at the end of this year. I know Bill loves him as well, but I just wanted to add that on because I thought that was a great point that you brought up there with the A&M running back situation.
Yeah, I mean, I just to jump on, like I said, I'm going to go over this and pick them, but I think there's so many things that are in the advantage column here for Texas A&M. I think a lot of people are looking at the rankings and kind of A&M's past the last couple of years, and the Jimbo Fisher era, per se, if you want to look at it that way. I think it's a totally different team. I think Mike Elko was the perfect coach for them to hire. I think this team is ready to go. Kyle Fieldhouse will be jumping. Very tough place to play. I'm kind of hedging my bet here, and you can see where I'm going. But I'm a big Connor Wegman fan. I think this is going to be kind of his coming out party on national TV later tonight. So we will get into pick 'em shortly. We got one more game to preview, but kind of figure out where I'm going.
This is the one that's coming at you right now. Coming at you here in 15 minutes.
We will go the number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs versus the 14th ranked Clemson Tigers in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Dome. So it's pretty much a home game for Georgia. I love that they always have, they count this as a neutral site game every year. But I mean, they play 3 games a year in this goddamn dome. So it's like a home field. But that being said, I think Clemson hangs in this for a while. Again, I think Clemson's one of those kind of sneaky under the radar, which sounds weird to say about Clemson for the success they've had the past decade. But a lot of people are down on them. I think they're a little bit better than people think this year. But again, I've made no bones about it. I think Georgia, coming off last year's snub, which I think a lot of people are forgetting about, they just think about Florida State. They don't remember how upset Georgia and Kirby Smart and all those guys were about not getting in with 1 loss last year. And you can make an argument they should have. I think they have a chip back on their shoulder. And I think that's dangerous if you're playing Georgia right now, because they've kind of switched roles from being the hunted going back to being the hunters again. And I think they feel a certain type of way about this season. So I think the spread's 13.5. I still think that's a big number, but that being said, if I had to bet it, if I had to pick it, I would probably go Georgia. So I think Georgia wins comfy here in Atlanta against Clemson.
I mean, Dabo Swinney doesn't do a great job of prepping his teams for first games of the year, as seen last year when they got trumped by Duke 28-7. Clemson's lead back, Will Shipley, he's shipped out to the NFL. Obviously they have a very capable back in Phil Maffa still there, or just under 1,000 yards last year. So he'll be the workhorse back for that Clemson team. And when you look on paper, Georgia's just better, man. For Clemson to surprise some people and keep this game close, they're going to have to commit no stupid penalties, get Georgia into 3rd and long situations, and cause something that Georgia did not do a lot last year, and that's turn the ball over. And that's just way too many asks for Clemson to need to beat Georgia. I think you're right, Bill. I think Georgia covers that 13.5 pretty easily. I think that it's honestly a 3-touchdown game. I don't think it's as close. I think this game is only good because of the names of the schools on paper, and that's it.
I think you get a close quarter of football. I think Georgia's going to still be trying to figure out what life is like after Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey. Of course, had to give him a shout out, Justin. Take your Saturday shot, because we said Ladd McConkey. There's another one for you. But I think after they figure that out and just start running the football and figuring out who's going to be their go-to receivers and things like that, I think this game gets out of hand, and it gets out of hand rather quickly. Trust Carson Beck with the football. Wasn't a huge fan of his last year. I still kind of don't believe in the full hype around him that he's like the consensus number 1 QB in this class. I haven't quite seen that out of him just yet for me personally. But I think with all the talent around Georgia, they're just way too good. And I think they're going to blow Clemson out of the water as it gets later in this game. And maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of the end for Dabo Swinney here. So, but I like Georgia. I like Georgia big, and I like them to cover that 13.5 point spread.
Well, we all agree on that one. So that's pretty easy to wrap up game preview. Yes. So that is what you have going on between now and the end of the weekend. Most of those are today. Like I said, Cottrell just said, Georgia Clemson is going to kick off right at noon, kind of start the day. Penn State, West Virginia, I believe, is noon as well. And then you have stuff later in the day. And then obviously you get the special edition of the LSU-USC game tomorrow night, with it being a holiday weekend.
Also a game Monday night, Boston College and Florida State. Now, that's a huge game, but Monday night, that's always good for football.
It is true. I mean, Florida State season could be over Monday night. So it'll be interesting. But we're winding down here, so we're gonna get to the last segment of the show, which we always end once we finally get into season, which we are, thank God. We're gonna end with Pick'em. If you're not familiar with how we do it very similarly, honestly, to the way they do it on ESPN Game Day. We're gonna pick 3 normal games. You get 1 point for every one of those that you get right, and then we do a super dog pick. So at the end of the year, super dogs. The rules that we use, that we came up with our own, The spread's got to at least be 15.5 or 15. Sorry. If your Superdog wins the game, which has happened, Cottrell's hit a couple. I've hit a couple.
New Mexico State.
Yeah, so you did hit one last year. If they win the game outright, you get how many points they won by plus what the spread was. So say if New Mexico was, an 18-point underdog and they win the game 33-30, you would get 3 plus 18, which would be 21. The way most Superdog picks end up working is whatever the 15 is, if they cover anything less than that, you get that many points. So, every week when we do this, you'll see 2 different sets of standings. You'll see normal plus Superdog. So Cottrell won last year with the normal picks, which is, the more important one to win. And then I won Superdog, I think, by a point. Is that what we discovered?
I think it was 2 points. 2 points.
Yeah, points. So we're going to start over again this week. This year. Everybody's 0-0-0 right now. So Cottrell, you are the winner last year, so you can start us off.
All right, perfect. And I'll go quick here just because I gave these picks out over on Wire to Wire as well. But first game I like, don't necessarily love it just because I'm not the guy to do this. But Alabama minus 31.5 at home versus Western Kentucky. This feels like a gimme. Western Kentucky lost out on Austin Reed and Malachi Corley to the NFL last year. That's a lot of production to replace for a team like Western Kentucky. And I get it. It's Kalen DeBoer's first game in Alabama. But I think their first game this is going to be a 40-point win for Alabama. I'm not too concerned about that. They always beat up on those smaller schools. Next game I like, this is the one that really has been flying under the radar for me. South Dakota State University plus 10 at Oklahoma State. I think this is the game where if they can find a way to just slow down Ollie Gordon and make Alan Bowman throw the ball downfield, they can cause some turnovers and really make this a tight game. I love what South Dakota State can do on offense with Mark Gronowski, probably the best quarterback in the program's history there, and he's coming off 2 national championships. I think they find a way to keep that game tight. Oklahoma State probably wins on a walk-off field goal. Last game, regular game I like North Carolina minus 1.5 at Minnesota. This is going to be Max Johnson's transfer from LSU's first game with that North Carolina team. Omarion Hampton is a stud running back. I think they're going to be able to run over that Minnesota team, who's also going to be starting a new quarterback in Max Brosner, and he's coming over from the FCS level. So I think North Carolina takes care of business with a lot of ground and pound, and I think Max Johnson looks good in his first start there. And then my super dog for the week, I like Lehigh plus 33.5 at Army. Army's defense got completely gutted last year. They lost one of the most productions in all of college football for one side of the ball. And I think Lehigh brings back a lot of production on offense. And this is a team that played a lot of tight games last year. I think 33.5 is a lot for a run-heavy team. And so I think Lehigh finds a way to cover that spread there and get me some super dog points to start the season.
Alex, you're up, brother.
I like it. All right, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet, just like you, Cottrell. I'm going to start out in Eugene with my Oregon Ducks. The over-under is 62.5. Last year, Oregon dropped over 90 against Portland State in the season opener. I expect Oregon to alone drop over 62 points and cover the over quite handedly. I also Iowa, Illinois State. The over/under is at 40.5. As always, and I'll probably be doing this every single week, I'm taking the under of the Iowa-Illinois State game because I don't think Illinois State will score on Iowa, and Iowa's new offense looks absolutely atrocious. I don't think they score more than 28 points in that game against a weak Illinois State defense. I think scoring 28 is an insult to the offense, but I think the 40.5 under is the easy plane to cover. And then Hawaii started 1-0 last week. This week, they play UCLA. Hawaii is the worst 1-0 team in the country, and UCLA is going to start their season off right and cover that 14-point spread. So UCLA minus 14 over Hawaii. And for my super dog pick, I'm going to go back to my college football playoff prediction. And Fresno State, their best chance to make it to the college football playoff is to not only win their conference, but keep their toughest matchup close, and that's going to be against Michigan. So I'm taking Fresno State 20.5 points against Michigan. Fresno State's offense is good enough to score at least 14 points against Michigan's standout defense. However, I think Michigan will be a run-heavy offense, which will limit touches, and I think that's what allows them to keep that game within 3 touchdowns. So I'm going Fresno State 20.5 for my super dog.
Alrighty, I'll be real quick here. Just like I gave out my picks on Wednesday on Coast to Coast, or Wire to Wire, excuse me. So Made no bones about the first game. West Virginia plus 8.5 Penn State. I'm taking West Virginia in the points. Again, I think Penn State wins the football game. I just think it's a close game. I think week one, I think it's a tough trip. A lot of kinks to work out. I think West Virginia can stay in that ball game, especially at home in front of their fans. So I'll go West Virginia plus 8.5. Game we just talked about as well. Notre Dame at Texas A&M minus 2.5. Love Texas A&M. Connor Wigman, learn the name. I think this is a coming out campaign. I really do. I think Mike Delco is going to have a good game plan for that defense against his former quarterback. At home, Kyle Field. I think Connor Wigman, that offense score, get Notre Dame kind of out of sync a little bit. Kind of have to come out of their shell the way they don't want to. I think leads to turnovers. I like I like Texas A&M. Kick a field goal with probably like a minute to go. Hang on to win the game. I think they cover. Last not least, I'm going to go, team we talked about last week a little bit. I'm going Michigan State minus 12.5 at home against Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic lost a lot of talent, don't have a lot of returning starters. I know Michigan State's had a lot of turnover as well. That being said, at home, I think with Chile starting, I think they get the job done. Just a weird gut feeling pick for me. I hate Michigan State. I don't like picking them, but I think at home, I just think they cover that number for some odd reason. And last but not least, for my super dog, I'm going to hometown Temple Owls plus 42.5 at Oklahoma. I know Oklahoma is going to be, have a good offense. I think I'm kind of using Alex's logic here. I think if Temple scores 2 touchdowns, which I think they're capable of doing over the course of the game, probably some in like scrub time. Oklahoma's got to score damn near, almost 60, 65 points to cover then. I think, Brent Venables will call off the dogs at that point. I think Temple maybe just steals me a couple super dog points. So those are my picks for this week. That'll wrap up Pick'em. We are done, gentlemen, right in the nick of time.
Absolutely.
Gotta go piss and watch the game.
Exactly.
Yep. You got time to get your cocktail and
kick off in about 6 minutes. So we are under the gun, under the bell as normal. Any closing thoughts, gentlemen?
I got nothing. I'm ready for the season to kick off, and we're getting one step closer to that October 12th matchup. So I'm happy.
And I'm hoping Oregon scores 100. Yeah, I'm hoping Oregon drops 100 burger today.
Oh my God. Just expectations coming out of the Pacific Northwest.
Real quick. We got like 90 seconds ish. One name. That's all you got. One name on your guys' team that you want to see perform well today.
Jay Harris. Oh, sorry. I thought we were going fast. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, Jay Harris, Division III Heisman Trophy running back. He's gonna get lots of playing time today. Look for him to go over 100 yards.
For me, Jeremiah Smith, learn the name, number 1 receiver in the class. I think he's going to be the best receiver on Ohio State's roster this year. I think you're going to probably see that later today. I know that's a bold statement because the Mecca's coming back. I think Jeremiah Smith is going to ultimately be the leader in yards on this team when the season's all said and done.
I want to say Donovan because I actually think Donovan goes for over 2 today. I really do. I think he breaks probably one long one. But that being said, it's got to be Alex Orji. I got to see what we have, and I got to see how the kid plays, against a real defense that's actually really trying to tackle him and get the ball away from him. I got to see, really kind of what this season, kind of where the ceiling actually really is. So for me, I'm going to have to go Alex Orji. Perfect. Go ahead and wrap us up, Bill. All right, gentlemen, that is it. We will be back next weekend for week 2. And as always, have a good week. We will see everybody later. All right. See you, boys.